host, Will Carey. I appreciate you being here. On the show this week, I have comedian Cathy Humes, who I don't know very well. I feel like I've only met her recently in the past couple months, but I'm looking forward to sitting down and kind of learning who she is as a person because, again, as you may have heard me mention on this show, a lot of my friends I only know from their stand-up, and I don't have a lot of long conversations with because the comedy community in New York, at least in the circles I run, being that a lot of the people I consider my friends live far away from me, I don't get to have the opportunities to chill and hang out and stay at the diner all night like I used to in Baltimore. So this podcast is a way, if not for you, also for me to connect with people, and I'm looking forward to talking to Cathy Humes. Before we get into the interview, as you may get sick of me mentioning, I am going to be doing a half-hour co-headlining show with Tyler Richardson at the People's Improv Theater on February 28th. It's a Sunday, and tickets are $7, and if you guys can come out, I'm going to be filming this set in an attempt to get a tape so that I can try to get more shows across the country. So I'm hoping that you guys can come out. Again, it's going to be at the People's Improv Theater, February 28th, and I hope to see you guys there. And be well wherever you are. It's been a rough couple of weeks for the nation at large, and maybe even the world. But I hope you guys are hanging in, and I'm with you, and I'm trying to help. So thank you for listening, and let's go to my chat with Cathy Humes. It's okay. This would be a good way to start the show, I think.
Cheers. I'm gonna try. Yes. I'll try not to belch throughout the podcast.
Don't worry about it. That's why those little imperfections I find charming in podcasts. Whereas if I feel like on like morning radio, it would take something away from the artistic integrity of your typical morning drive time DJ.
Those zoo crews are usually so classy.
Yeah.
So.
I always wonder how like dudes like that. Like there's this guy I started comedy in Baltimore.
Okay.
And like the first like huge set I ever got to do was doing a guest spot on Mickey Coachella's like headlining weekend at the Baltimore Comedy Factory.
Oh boy.
And he was like, he isn't now, but he was like the big like morning guy on the modern rock station.
Right.
And he was like the guy, like you would never like go, oh, I just love the joke structure on him, but he was like the guy who would just crush kill
right
all weekend. Like the entire crowd's like or whatever, like that. He was
kind of local hero, kind of.
Yeah. So like, I always wonder how like dudes like that, because I consider like, I always wonder how like zoo crew guys get into radio, because it seems to me like sort of like even a slightly nerdy or like.
I mean, I think some people come into it from comedy for sure. Like I know, like I actually like know Ben, like Ron Bennington, Ron and Fez. So like I know his daughter because we actually worked together for many years, and like so he started out as a comic, and like he had a comedy club and stuff, and then he got into radio because it was just like better for family stuff, because you get to be stationary instead of touring around and stuff. And so I think like
that's true. That
like is sort of a logical leap. Like I mean, or you see like Jim Norton is doing it now too. Like so, I think that's like a logical leap. It's a spoken word riffing sort of format, so it makes sense that some people would get into it, I guess.
No, that makes sense, especially if you're trying to explore ideas and not having to worry about the word economy of driving towards a punchline.
Right.
You can maybe have a more interesting discussion compared to like a crowd on a Friday or Saturday night.
And like part of it, I think, is too like you can take callers if you want and hear from the people that are like quote unquote in the audience, but then you have a guy that can just hang up on them at any moment too, so they're not like going to be heckling you nonstop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I so wish I could just hang up on some audience members.
That would be nice. That'd be great if you could cut their mic.
That's actually interesting you bring that up. That just reminded me, I was reading Patton Oswalt. When I read Patton Oswalt's first book, he had a chapter where he kind of followed the arcs of other comedians he was, I guess, coming up with in DC. Mm-hmm. And it follows like the guy who believes that, the way you get successful is you come up with your 5 clean Carson minutes.
Right.
And then there's the guy who is maybe Bill Hicks influenced, and he's trying to like speak truth.
Be a truth teller. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, I can't remember what happened to the 5 clean minutes Carson guy, but I know the truth sayer guy is like became like a right-wing radio host.
Right. Yeah.
So you are almost like, it sounds like, I would imagine he got frustrated of trying to like communicate his ideas to an audience
that wants to laugh.
Yeah.
An audience that's there just to have fun and hear jokes. Yeah.
Right. And so you get into this point where you can just kind of mouth off on a microphone and not have the pressure of like, drink minimums and what have you.
Right. Or like any, entertainment that is meant to be like something that you can replicate, because I think that's the thing with radio too, is a lot of times it's just like them kind of like off the dome, just like saying whatever's coming into their mind. And like, for the most part, you're not getting good stand-up if the person is doing that on stage in a stand-up format. They usually need to have some kind of written beats
exactly.
they're hitting.
or you at least need to have like a little kernel of an idea that you're anchored to.
Right.
Because every time
going off, yeah.
Yeah, because every time I've tried to, and I don't know if this is the same for you, every time I've tried to just go up with completely free and just see where it goes, I always suck.
Right. Oh, same. Yeah. I mean, you need to have, like you said, like some kind of nugget of something you're coming back to that's like the central idea of whatever it is. But even then, like I'm the kind of person where like I overwrite every bit before I go on stage.
And then you like whittle it down.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like to riff. Like, I mean, like I'm trying to get better at it, definitely, like, cause it's definitely a skill that I feel like is good to have. But I feel like I came from a theater background. So like, I think I like to think of it as a script that I have memorized. And then there's an ad lib in parentheses that's like written into my script at certain moments. But like, I still look at like sort of like structure it that way in my mind a lot of times.
Right. I started in theater as well. So that was what I think, thinking of it like a script is how I was able to even try stand up.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only way I got the balls to do it,
begin
basically. Because I was like, I'm just doing a play reading, a monologue of my own writing.
Exactly. And for me at least, I'm going to go do this monologue in this sports bar.
Right.
Where they're not going to turn the Ravens game off.
Yeah, no, it's just the place for a dramatic monologue.
Oh, absolutely. So you started in theater.
I did, yeah. No, I did like theater all growing up and was like big into acting and came to school in New York to study musical theater. And then after I got out of school is when I got into comedy.
Okay. That's and I know I think you might have said this before, so I'm intending it as a joke. You made some joke about how you and Camille Theobald get mistaken.
Yeah, no. We actually went to the same school too, so it's really funny. Yeah, we went to the same musical theater school in New York and then got out of school. And no one thought we looked alike in school. And then we got out of school and are both comedians now. And like people always think that I'm her. I think she's been doing comedy longer than me. So I don't know how much of that she gets on the flip side, but she's told me a couple of times people have been like, hey, Cathy. And then
okay, the only reason I think that happens, because it has nothing to do with like you being similar at all, I don't think. It's that you're women with short haircuts.
Right.
That's what I think it
Absolutely.
is.
No,
that's the only reason.
I think that's like 99% of it is that like we're both maybe slightly similar looking, but not really. Like we have different color hair and stuff, but we both are like medium-sized women with short hair, so it just ends up being like, oh, you're the same. But I take it as a compliment. She's very funny, so I'm just like, great, think I'm her.
Oh
book
yeah.
me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think you're both hysterical.
Well, thank you.
So, okay. So you started in theater. What kind of plays? What were some of the memorable plays you did? You were, because I think like I don't know you super well.
Yeah, I know. We
But-
just know each other in passing.
Yeah,
whatever.
because I feel like I've only like met you like maybe 6 months or a year ago or something like
Yeah.
that. I think we're from the same area. You're from
Yeah,
Virginia?
I'm from Northern Virginia, and I think
Okay.
you said you're from. I listened to an episode to
Yes.
prep for this, and heard you mention you're from Maryland.
Yes, grew up in Southern Maryland.
Cool.
Went to college outside of Baltimore.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Northern Virginia.
Like Arlington?
Sort of like a little further out. Like I'm sort of on the line between like real redneck, like Southern Virginia kind of getting into, and then sort of like the more DC suburb area. So like I'm
Sure.
from Fauquier County, which I don't know if you know, but it's like Fairfax is like the next county over, and like Manassas. I don't know if you know that.
I know
area.
Manassas.
Yeah, yeah. So like I was near kind of like that, which was a little more urban, but like the county I lived in was much more agriculture centered in terms
Right.
of the gross domestic products
Sure.
coming out of there. This is mostly beef and stuff. So yeah, lots of sort of like a farm town. But they had like a little theater community kind of thing there, you know, like a community theater and
Yes.
high school theater and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So there's like groups of people that are just like, you know, they're living their lives, they're working their jobs, but then they love theater, so they're doing that.
Yeah.
Those are the real heroes.
Really?
I
No,
think on
totally.
some-
I mean, well, that was how I discovered performance, was just like being in some like children's play when I was a kid, and then being like getting hooked on like being in front of an audience and everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's where that first kind of rush you get, where you're like, ooh, more of this, please.
Well, and my first play I did was Through the Looking Glass, the Lewis Carroll thing, and it was like a stage production of it, and I was Tweedledee of the duo Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and they were like funny characters, so they got lots of laughs because they run around and chase each other and hit each other over the head
Sure,
and stuff.
sure.
And like I remember like getting lots of laughs, and that was awesome, and being like, fuck yeah, that rules, that feels good. And then also the play got written up in the local paper, and I got my picture in the paper. And so I think like from there on out, it was just over. Like I was just like, the bug had bit me or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It was like instant gratification.
Yes.
Instant like recognition. So from then on, I was just trying to like recapture that dragon.
Yeah, you get that first taste of what it's like to be like a local celebrity. And you're like, ooh, let me just
More of
build.
this.
Let me just build on this.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel the same way, because the first time I got a really big laugh doing a play, I was like, ooh, this is good, because I had done like I'd done like bit parts, and I didn't start theater until like my sophomore year of high school, because my best friend, who I'll owe forever, continuously kept bugging me. He bugged me all through freshman year. I wouldn't listen. He bugged me more sophomore year. I was like, fine, okay, I will audition. And
You owe that guy a lot.
I do. He's like he's my best friend since like forever. We
Awesome.
don't get to talk as much, but you know, it's like one of those friendships where you just
Yeah,
pick
it
up.
picks up. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
So the first thing big laugh I remember getting was I was in the pajama game.
Awesome. Great show.
And I was Mr. Hassler, the boss who would not give the employees a raise. And there's a scene where knives get thrown in my general direction, so I jumped across the stage to land behind my desk, and theoretically I was supposed to find a safe way to do this. I just never did. So I was banging my knee up every night.
You're in high school, you can handle it.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. And the big laugh I got is I have this line where I talk about a plot to murdering me, and I say, "Don't you see those knives? That's the work of foreigners." And the entire auditorium just erupts in laughter. Granted, maybe it's because of where I grew up, but
Right. Yeah, no,
But
totally.
just-
Some of those like 1960s jokes still hit.
oh yeah, they're staples.
Yeah,
So that's where I was like, "Ooh, yes, okay."
Well, and there's
Commando.
something about a joke too that like even if it's just written on a page, you can just say a joke and get the reaction you want to get out of it which is laughter, like without that much expertise, like as opposed to like when you're doing like high school theater or whatever, it's like if it's a line that's meant to elicit tears or something, you know, and is super dramatic, it's like you may not have the range at 17 to pull that off, but you can, if you can figure out how to deliver a joke, it's going to work every time. And like there's something that you discover, I think, when you're doing theater that's like very satisfying about that.
I agree. Let me ask you this, because you went to school for theater as well, and then we'll do more of a chronological thing. But I repeatedly had teachers tell me that, you know, you're only going to have like the emotional capacity for certain parts and certain roles when you get older, because at a certain age you just don't have the experience or the sense memory to go to some places.
Right, totally.
Did you ever get told that?
I think that's definitely a problem that people run into, where like, unfortunately, like with casting nowadays, like if you're not like super hot, like as like your look, then you aren't going to necessarily get as much of a range of casting possibilities until you get a little bit older. And so like a lot of the like character-y type actors that I went to school with were like ended up being in scenes where they'd be playing someone a little bit older or this or that, and like it was just hard to do those characters, I think, for a bunch of people who are like in their late teens and 20s, you know, like, because first of all it's just annoying because you're not being cast like even in your age group, so it's not even like it's realistic casting for you now. Like you'd have to wait 20 years before you could go out for that at an audition, but then also like just the range you need even to try to pull that off isn't available to you at that point, because like you were saying, it's like you haven't had enough life experience. I think that's definitely something that's true in all forms of performance, is like you see the depth of someone's experience reflected in their performance. It's like when you see like high schoolers trying to do like a really heavy like show where like everyone's middle aged, like fucking like, you know, like high schoolers doing like Long Day's Journey into Night or something, or it's just like this. I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to like, you know, teach this amazing theater piece to these people, like, and like that's great, but at the same time, like you're never gonna get really like anything that's watchable, really. Like every time that they announced they were doing like a sad play at my high school, I was always like, no, it's gonna suck.
Oh no, exactly, because even you can do all the training you've probably read about, unless you've been hurt early,
right? Unless you're somehow like a haunted 17-year-old, then like, you know, it's probably pretty hard. And even then, it's just like not going to be believable, no matter how much like old age makeup you put on that person.
Yeah, that's how I felt like when I was in college. I had a callback for Otto Frank for the Diary of Anne Frank, and like I didn't get it. I ended up playing one of the Nazis' collaborators. Fun.
Fun role.
Yeah. So I ended up doing that, but I think now if I had the opportunity to play that role, I could maybe, because not that I've had the same experience, but I've been like hurt and sad enough that I could recall that hurt and sadness.
Are you telling me you haven't had the right experiences to be able to portray someone who lived through the Holocaust really well?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Cathy.
Somehow being a comedian in New York City hasn't given you the same level of trauma. Close.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but so I think that's something that is tough when you're young and trying to get into acting, is like you want to be able to play all these meaty roles and stuff, but like there's not a lot for you. Like if you're just like kind of a young cute person, then they just kind of want you to play like ingenue roles where you're like, I'm in love, and like that's
ingenues, or the like teen college comedy,
right,
or the like horror movie, something else. Like there's, and not that I'm an authority on this, but I feel like there are certain like genre pictures where you could just drop in like nameless, faceless, random, pretty people, and then just chop them up or have them fuck each other.
Yeah.
And see if money gets printed.
People will go see that. They won't care. Yeah. I mean, whatever the big like summer like horror thriller is, usually like people just want a dumb movie to turn their brains off to. So that's what young actors are great for.
It is. And there are times that I wish I had a brain that could be receptive to that, but like my TV, I will watch dumb cartoons, but I cannot watch like dumb reality TV, and I can't watch like dumb comedies. I need like
I'm not a big reality
just need
show person
something.
either. Like I kind of like cooking shows. Like that's
like
probably as
cooking
close
shows.
to like a reality show as I would get to. Is like I kind of like I don't hate those like cooking competition shows either. Like even though that sort of strays into the area of like more reality like drama based things, but for the most part I don't do really like reality shows and stuff. I think I've always been kind of a little bit of a sucker for the dramatic. So
Yeah, I'll either do the dramatic or just cartoon like absurdity. That's what I like. That, or I'll watch like a soccer game if I want to completely turn my brain off.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing theater. So you're growing up in sort of like farm town, Virginia. What's your home situation like? What did your parents do?
My dad was a contractor, so he like owned his own business and like built and remodeled houses. And then my mom was a teacher when I was growing up. So like she did like she sort of like did different things. She was like a professor's like TA for a while when I was younger, and then she was like an administrator at a couple different places. And then like when I got into 7th grade, she started teaching at the middle school that I went to. So like she was teacher mom. Yeah.
I know that. I went to the elementary school for 3 years that my mom taught at.
So you know what that's like.
Yeah, it's the feeling of, not that I didn't screw up all that much, but when I did, I was mortified because I knew she was going to find out immediately.
Yeah, no, totally. Same. So it was like, that was embarrassing because like also I went into 7th grade at the year that she started teaching 7th grade. So it was her first year teaching in a public school, the same year that like all my friends had her as a teacher. Like luckily I was in a different group, so I like didn't have her as a teacher or whatever, but like a bunch of my friends had her as a teacher, and they were like, your mom's so cool. She doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. She just gives us candy all the time. Because she was just that first year shell-shocked teacher who like didn't know how to manage the kids. So she just like constantly was giving them candy.
Yeah. Now seems like that would be a good way to do it. Yeah, because I couldn't imagine having my mom's job. By the time I was going to her school, she'd been teaching for a little while, and I would definitely get the people that are like, oh man, your mom's really strict. Is she like that at home? And I'm like, not really, but I don't.
No, people being like, talk to your mom about my homework situation. See what you can do about this.
It's like, no, it's like, leave the school, different setup. I don't like bringing work. I like talking about work outside of work.
Yeah, no, definitely. She was, I found it very embarrassing though. For the most part, I was like mortified by her presence, especially if she would try to come over and like talk to me when she wasn't supposed to be talking to me. You know, like it'd be like lunchtime, and she would like come over from the teacher's table and like start talking to me, and I would just like shrink in my seat and be like, oh no, I don't even want people to know that we're related because we don't have the same last name. So like I feel like I was like sliding by under some people's radar, like, hey, maybe some people don't even know that she's my mom. So even though we look identical.
Right.
That's the thing I was not thinking about at that age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I'm going to school.
You're dealing with that.
Teacher.
So you're dealing with that. I'm interested. What kind of kid were you when you like reached high school? I'm trying to picture like what category you might have fallen into, and I can't quite
I was like
who you were.
Kind of a nerd, I was like on academic team, and like I was in chorus, and I hung out, like there was like the band hall, which was like where the band room was, and like where all the marching band kids would hang out and stuff, and like that was also sort of where all the like theater and chorus kids hung out. So like I hung out there. And like, my sister was like kind of like, she got into like punk and stuff, and so like I was constantly copying her, so like I kind of like was copying that a little bit, like, so like I kind of was like a Hot Topic punk, like emo kid sort of, but like that wasn't my main thing. My main thing was like being into like theater and like singing and choir and stuff, but
with a slight edge
slight edge
for the, because I'm of that ilk as well.
I had like lots of word shirts that said dumb things from Hot Topic that were like, "You're so off my buddy list," and like stuff like that.
The MySpace. I'm trying. What year was this? If you don't know.
When I was in high school, I graduated in 2007. So
graduated in 2007.
So I started in like 2003.
Okay, so I graduated from high school in 2004. I'm trying to picture
Okay, so you're
what bands.
basically my sister's age. You're like a little bit older. You're 1 year older than my sister.
Yeah, more or less. So I'm gonna try to guess what bands were on the mixtape.
Okay.
Just judging from what would have been at Warped Tour around that
I did
time.
go to Warped Tour in like 2005, I think.
Okay, that's the first year I went, so that could have been
the 10-year anniversary of Warped Tour, which I can't remember which year it was now. Maybe 2004.
So that could have been might have been My Chemical Romance, might have been Reliant K. That year, Billy Talent.
None of these are the ones I went and saw
Glory.
that year. Okay, so if you want to know my like Warped Tour bands that I went and saw,
I do. I like talking about this.
That year I went and saw Flogging Molly.
Awesome.
Saw Bad Religion and Anti-Flag. I
love
saw
them. I've seen Anti-Flag like
Coheed
6
and
times.
Cambria. Oh, nice. Yeah, that was my only time seeing them. But Coheed and Cambria. I liked Rise Against.
I was just listening to Rise Against
They're still good.
on the way over. Yeah, they're still so good.
Stuff holds up.
Oh yeah, Rise Against, absolutely. I didn't love their last album as much as some of their early stuff, but when they're on, like, that's like the soundtrack of the Resistance. I think like that, and Anti-Flag, who still put on such a great show. The last time I saw them, they were doing a 10-year anniversary tour for the Terror State.
Oh, nice.
If you remember that album.
Yeah.
So it's like, the people united will never be defeated. And, them bringing the drum kit down into the crowd and then playing basically the last song while the circle pit goes around them.
Yeah. Very cool.
That whole, that was like my first experiences of like a community bonding experience.
Yeah,
growing up.
I think that was what I liked about it. Was it was just I liked punk music because it was a scene in my town that you could go hang out with these people and they weren't cool. Like they were weird people like you. Like they were all misfits also. And so like I didn't have like a bad. I wasn't running away from like a bad family life or anything like that. Like
so you weren't tortured like some of them.
No, not at all. Like I mean, like like we weren't like super well off, and like like my parents would fight, but like but not in any way that was like probably like an excuse to be a real grungy punky kid the way that some people did.
You weren't cutting yourself and writing poetry.
Right. Well, I mean, I was writing poetry, but not with my own blood or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, no, totally. But so that was like sort of a scene that I ended up hanging out in.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's important. I feel like punk rock, even if you don't like either stay in it that long or let me just it's my mom. I will call her back. That is sort of the organic nature of this medium.
We taking calls?
I still have to teach my mom what a podcast is. I think she has like a vague understanding of it. But I was saying punk rock, I think is really important because it's like, I've said this before, but I think it's like the Frappuccino of creativity. Like it's really accessible.
Yeah.
And it can get you, once you get that, you find out like a lot of other stuff related to it, even if it's not that punk music.
So you're using it as the introduction to coffee, like as a metaphor. Okay, I totally get it, and I agree. That's a perfect metaphor for that. It's like it's the Frappuccino of introducing you to like altness.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, or the idea that you can do it too, because anybody. I think you could have no musical ability. You could have never played an instrument before, and in a weekend, you could be the bassist in a pop punk band.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a punk band very briefly when I was like a sophomore in high school, I think, or like a freshman in high school, and we were called Dusty Chucks. And
great name.
I still stand by that name. That was a good name. But yeah, we played like the 4-chord songs, and it was very like just an excuse for kids to hang around, and like most of the time we wouldn't actually practice, we would just stick around and blow things up and just be idiots, but like it was all under the guise of creativity, and I think that's the fun. It's fun when you find people like that are just like down to because that's all everybody wants to do, I think, is like make a thing and then be like, hey, look at the thing I made. Isn't it cool? You know? And so.
I still have I still have an EP that's written. I just need Benel to like come over here more often and like lay it down.
Nice.
I don't let go of any of the stuff. I'm like, that EP is going to get recorded. I'm going to get this stand-up album done. I'm going to get into this festival.
Yeah, totally.
I don't let go of it. I can't let go of any of that stuff. So was that the first inclination that you were going to be a creative person, was when you were in Dusty Chucks? Or did you have your sights set on acting at that point?
I think I always knew I was going to be I was always the artsy one in the family. Like I took art lessons and like always was writing stories and was like always in plays and wanted to be involved in theater if whatever was available to me. And like, so I think like I think I always knew, like, I remember I was saying I wanted to be a movie star from the time I was like 6. Like, I remember like my two things that I would tell everyone that I wanted to be were like, I want to be a movie star and an astronaut. I was like, why can't I be both? I don't understand. And people kept being like, you kind of have to pick one. And I'd be like, I don't believe you. Right. So I think like from an early age, I knew, like, because no one else in my family is super artistic. Like my dad kind of was, like, he played in a bluegrass band and like kind of was, I think like fancied himself more of like a jack of all trades, like sort of guy. Cause like he was he like I said, he was a contractor builder guy, but he sort of like took pride in his work in a sort of artistic way. So like he was the closest I had to an artistic influence, but like he just had a straight job. My mom just had a straight regular job and she was always more of an academic. My sister was always more of an academic mind. And so I think I was sort of the like artsy kid in the family that always kind of didn't have any big aspirations for like a legit career, quote unquote.
You just were, and I relate to that so much. I have never wanted to, like, my girlfriend is like super into whatever job she has, and she's really into like the inner dynamics of the people she's working with and how to like work with like difficult people. And every job I've had, I've literally not given a shit about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Like, I feel like the only thing that would maybe feel like a job that I wasn't just bullshitting my way through would be if I got it. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I just said I was going to belch and there it just happened. But like, I feel like unless I got a job like where I was writing or something like that like was actually stimulating my creativity in some way, that like all my jobs that have just been like survival jobs have just been kind of going through the motions. Yeah. Like, okay, do the thing, collect the paycheck, and then do the thing I want to do outside of that.
Oh yeah. That's what I've always been. That's where I feel like my most excited, like the most that I feel like I am being who I really am, and I'm not having to like pretend to be something for somebody else.
Yeah, and like pretend that you care about the thing that they want you to care about.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I work for a pretty cool company right now, and like you know, the thing I appreciate about them though is the fact that they acknowledge that that's not the only thing I do. You know, like in my job interview, they were like, we think it's cool that you do other stuff and we want to make a good job that you can do and then go away from it, not have to think about. And I was like, perfect. That's literally exactly what I'm looking for.
Man,
you know,
I'm going to be asking you if they're hiring in a few months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's nice. It's just nice because I feel like so many jobs want you to pretend like data entry is your whole favorite thing, and it's just like, come on.
That's absolutely the truth. I even think I'm pretty sure I've had job interviews where they've seen my degree and they're always asking like these kind of probing questions of like what I do outside of work, and it's like if they're hinting at any kind of desire to do anything other than the job, then I'm not getting hired.
Good. Yeah, totally.
And I don't understand that, really.
It's unrealistic, I think. It's like, well, either I want them to lie to me or I want them to be a drone. Like, which, like, most people in New York are here because they're trying to pursue something, you know, that's like on top of whatever their day-to-day job is. And so I think, like, employers who can't wrap their head around that is like, they're just fooling themselves. It's like you're asking someone to lie in their job interview, basically, like rather than just be like, no, we acknowledge that other people will have things outside of work. And as long as you can do your job, you know, I think that's the idea that like that will hinder you in your job performance is probably based on some kind of negative experience they've had with people in the past, where it's like someone that was so caught up in whatever that was that they couldn't do their job effectively. But like so many people are able to separate those two things and it's not a problem. And so it's like to judge everyone based on probably a few people, or I assume probably there are some people who leave that job eventually because they've found success in whatever field they were pursuing outside of that. But like, shouldn't you feel happy for that person then? Like, I don't know. It just feels like dumb that some companies are.
Yeah, I think so. You could use that as like a badge of honor for your company.
Right. Like look, we fostered this person's career.
Yeah, like Weird New Jersey loves the fact that they're like, yeah, Chris Gethard, Weird New Jersey alum. He used to work here, and look at all this cool stuff he's doing. He talked about this old story on Mark Maron.
Be proud of your people who move on or whatever.
Absolutely. I think more companies should be doing that. Okay, so you're the nerd adjacent punk rock girl,
right?
So we definitely would have been good friends if we went to the same high school.
Probably. I had a small crew of other weird misfit kids I hung out with.
Exactly. And then like one friend who just has a one-word nickname. We don't learn his real name until like 4 years later. I'm curious, where are some of those like punk friends now? I'm always curious. Do you know what any of them are doing now? I'm always curious where.
I mean, some of them have kids and stuff and are like all settled, and you know, they still have piercings and tattoos and stuff, but they just have like settled down in different jobs and stuff. But like one of my friends from high school is she works like a medical I think does like some kind of medical assistance paperwork work. Like I know she was working for an optometrist for a long time, but I think maybe she's moved into some other kind of medical adjacent field. I have a friend who moved to Chicago and works, I think, in like some kind of retail management position in Chicago, and like has also done sort of like some comedy improv stuff out there. So because a lot of the people I hung out with were also like theater kids. So like there's a little bit of a mix of like people who kind of pursued theater-y jobs afterwards. But I don't know. Like it's kind of a mix. I mean, like some people. I'm trying to think. I don't think anyone besides like my one really good friend, Angelica, who was not as much of a punk. She was more of like but she also was a theater kid. She also lives up here in New York. And so I still see her a lot.
Good.
Yeah, it's cool. But like for the most part, all the people that I hung out with still live in Virginia. And I've lost track of a lot of them, you know, because I moved here right after high school. So like I've kind of been in my little New York bubble for quite a while at this point.
So, okay, so you moved. So how long have you been in New York?
I'm going to be here 10 years this year.
Nice.
In October. Yeah. So been here for a while.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that was like 2007. So you moved right after high school?
I moved right after high school and started at my musical theater school that fall.
Which was called?
AMDA. Yeah. Which is like a little, it's a pretty small school. It's up on the Upper West Side. It's like a 2-year conservatory program.
And you were going specifically for musical
theater. Yeah.
So that was... and I'm assuming you were in musicals prior to this.
Yeah, I was. I was in like a lot. I studied voice for a long time, and so like I have like a nice singing voice, and so I did musicals all through high school and stuff. And it wasn't ever because like musicals were my big thing that I was obsessed with. I was actually like more into like Shakespeare and sort of like straight drama, but they did a big musical that was like the big show every year. So I enjoyed it definitely. Like it was not unenjoyable for me, but like I think because of the fact that I sang and did theater, everyone was just like musical theater, that's the fit for you. And so I kind of like let other people make that decision for me a little bit because then when I got to school, I'd had all these people convincing me that I should do musical theater, and then I got to school and realized like I was nowhere near on the level of interest in musical theater that these other people were. Like, there were just people who were like, I mean, you know, if you know someone that's into musical theater, that's their whole life. They don't listen to other music, you know, like my roommate, you know, I always say like the way I knew was I went through her iPod and she just had musicals and that was it, and no music. And I was like, oh, this is like next level. Like, I did not realize how into musical theater some of these people are, and I'm kind of behind.
Yeah, like I've definitely know that type. Like the person who's obsessed with musical theater.
Yeah.
I definitely know that person.
Everyone knows. There's always one that everyone knows that has like the Cats T-shirt or whatever.
Yes, it's like let's listen to this like 1998 revival of this obscure West End show that only I know about.
Yeah, and so that was like all my teachers in school too, who were like always really excited if you were a big fan of musical theater, and always a little bit like, I think, like skeptical of you if you were coming into it without that much knowledge, because for good reason, because it's really hard to be good at musical theater, and so you have to really, really, really want to do that. And so I think that they smelled on me a little bit of that like non-committal attitude towards it, where I was like, okay, I'm here, and I was basically sort of just like, well, this got me to New York, which is what I wanted. I wanted to get out of my dumb cow town and go to New York.
Yes.
So this is accomplishing that for me. But I think, like, in retrospect, even after my first semester there, I was like, oh, maybe I should have just done like the straight acting program or whatever. But but it was just sort of like, oh, well, let's just get these 2 years over with and then I can figure it out. Which is what I ended up doing. Just putting my head down and getting through.
Just doing the work, which is, again, the greatest advice I've ever heard on a podcast when it talks. Great advice. When, and I think I'm citing, I can't remember which episode of Pete Holmes I'm citing, but it's definitely his, where he talks about really the best thing you could do for yourself if you're ever frustrated with where you are in an artistic career is just put your head down, just keep doing.
Absolutely.
Doing the thing.
Yeah, definitely. Eyes on your own paper kind of thing. Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah. That's Maria Bamford's like phrase too. She always says, do the work. That's like her whole thing. So, a lot of people. But yeah, it's a good philosophy. Yeah,
because otherwise you just like drive yourself insane. Because I definitely dealt with a lot of that too. I was always that guy. Because I'm sure you know this type also, like the cast list goes up on a thing and there's the person who gets a part, but it's not the exact part they wanted. So they've got to go right to the professor's office and demand to know why. I was the guy, I always had the kind of like a workman's mentality when it came to shows.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I'm a tall goofball. I know that I could probably play they need somebody who look intimidating. They need somebody where the part requires picking up an upright bass. Crazy for you. They need someone to like look creepy. They need like someone to be like, I know I'm a type.
Right.
And I just kind of like, and of course everyone loves being the center of attention at some point, but I'm just like, my approach has always been just like, I'm just happy to be here.
Totally.
That's always what I've been like.
Same.
Because theoretically, I'm like, am I in the show? If this were a professional setting, would I be getting paid? Then I'm accomplishing my goal, aren't I?
Yeah, totally. No, I think you can drive yourself crazy. I think not knowing your type is another thing that like they really drove into you at the school, was like, to the psychological detriment of some people probably.
Oh, yeah. Especially for women, right? Like,
it's tough. It's a lot of like our teachers just straight up telling you like you need to lose 10 pounds and stuff like that, like, and I mean, like we would have teachers who'd be like, look, if you want to come to me after class and talk to me, I will tell you with brutal honesty exactly what you need to do to be a leading woman or leading man or whatever, like, or if I think that that's something that's in your range, and like I will, and like they typed us, even like there was like activities where we would be learning how to play to our type and stuff, and so like I was always like, I'm a soprano singer, so like if you have a high voice and you're a young looking woman, then you just are always playing like 5 different roles, because you were like the leading, like not as much like older leading woman, but more just like young lover ingenue character. And so like, but there were some women who I went to school with who were like really curvy and like big lips and like big hair, and like they wanted to play ingenue roles, but it's like, no, you're a sexy vamp, and you have to play sexy vamps because you're all curves and you don't look like a 16-year-old or whatever, so
yeah,
like,
exactly.
So like I think, and there would be the people who would want really bad to be this one role that they just had their heart set on for whatever reason ever since they were young, and then they'd be beating their head up against their type or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, so there's so much psychological like craziness that happens in theater school, as I'm sure you are aware of. Yeah,
like my school, I went to Towson. I didn't encounter too much of that. I think all the talk about the business of how you become an actor was like maybe a couple of conversations towards the end of our last semesters.
Right.
But I did learn that I had a talent for stand-up because I took a comedy class where you go through like characters and mime and clown and stand-up,
Nice.
and I did learn I have that skill. I was never getting cast in the lead role, but I did gain the respect of my peers by being really funny in class, winning a contest on campus, and opening for like the big names who would come through.
Awesome.
So that was sort of like my aha moment of like, which is as important, I think, to have in your college experience.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think my aha moment in college was just, aha, this is not what I want to be doing. Okay. Like my aha was a reverse aha kind of, where it was like, aha, this is cool that I'm here, but I don't think I want to be doing musical theater after this.
So you hit a moment where you're like, musical theater is not going to be what I do or even what I want to do.
Yeah. Like I got out of school and I kind of went and auditioned for some things, and I was not getting callbacks or anything, and like I think partly because I just was not bringing any enthusiasm to it, and like so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stop beating my head against this, and I'm just gonna take some time to like figure out what I actually do want to do, because I knew that wasn't it.
And what was going on during that time? So you get out of college, you're still living in New York. Where in New York are you living?
My last, like, very end of the last semester of school, I moved into a place in Brooklyn with some friends because it was cheaper, and I was living in Manhattan before that, and it was crazy expensive.
Right.
And so I moved out to Brooklyn, and then got done with school, got a job waitressing, and for like a year and a half, I was just sticking around, kind of. Like, I was just like... I didn't know what, like I said, I like right when I got out of school for the first few months, I was like auditioning and stuff. And then I was like, I don't like this. I don't know what I want to do. And then I actually had an aha moment like a year and a half or so after, maybe a little bit more like a year after, where I saw a friend's Sketch 201 grad show at UCB. And I was like, oh, that's a thing that I could do. Like, I just definitely was like, I could do that for sure. I know I could do that. And like, I think a lot of my problem comes with like a lack of confidence, and and just like, I'm kind of a perfectionist. And so like, if I don't think I can do something perfectly the first time, I don't even want to try it.
Sure.
And so like, if I see something and I'm like, oh, I think I could do that if I worked on it and figured it out, then I'm like, okay, cool. I want to try and figure that out. And so like I started taking classes at UCB, and that sort of parlayed into stand-up eventually.
Right. So you started doing improv?
I took a sketch class first, just because that was like the thing I had been introduced to. And I knew that was acting and you were reading a script.
Yes.
So I was like, cool,
yes.
I need to put this in the wheelhouse of acting that I'm already aware of.
Yeah.
And so that was great. And then like when I took the sketch class, all the people in the sketch class were like people who had done improv and stuff already. And so they were like, oh, you should totally take, like, oh, you're coming from an acting background? You should totally take improv. Like, that's going to give you a better idea of how to write sketches and like all this stuff. And so I was like, cool. And so after that, I took 3 levels of improv, and I learned a lot about comedy, I think, through that. Like, that definitely helped hone my instincts a little bit. And then, and my dad passed away kind of like in the middle of that, and so it's okay. But so I mean, it's sad, but you know, like it was a while ago at this point. But so
I got to express something. I can't just say,
just callously sit there.
I can't just not react.
But so that definitely, like, I had been kind of still just like taking an improv class here or there, and sort of not sure where it would lead. And I had it in my mind that I wanted to do stand up, but it was just one of those things where it was still just the unspoken desire, and I was too nervous to say it out loud.
Right.
And so then, like, once he passed away, I think I kind of just got that. I had that thing that I think a lot of people say happens after they have a loved one die, which is just like, oh, this is all temporary. I have to fucking actually do shit if I want to have it happen, you know? Right. And so like, then that was when I really like sort of got the fire lit under my ass to really start grinding on the stand-up thing and make it happen. So.
And when did you first do stand-up?
I first did stand-up two, I guess, I'm going to have my 3-year anniversary of stand up in June. So yeah, it was like right before I turned 25, right before my 25th birthday, I did my first open mic. And
Where?
I did the Open Michelle at UCB.
Yes.
Because it was very supportive lady Mike. And I have a friend, my friend who I was telling you who lives up here in New York,
Yes.
went to NYU with Anna Dresden.
Yeah, I know Anna. I don't know her super well, but...
And so she was the host of that mic. And so my friend was like, I know you want to do stand up. My friend hosts this open mic. Like, you should go. And so I remember like the first time I just went to the open mic and watched, like, because I was so nervous and I was like, I just want to watch and like, I just wanted to see what it was, you know, like that goes back to the perfectionist thing where I just like, I'm not good at just flying in blind. Like I like to have a sense of everything. And so like, I just went and watched and the next week I went and I did my first set.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The thing they say about the super supportive mics, I wish that was the rule rather than the exception.
I know.
Because it's a fucked up proposition, stand-up comedy on a certain degree. And I think that some people have taken this idea that that comedy is hard and it has to be painful.
Definitely.
To too far of a degree, because if you're just starting, it should be a little easier. There's plenty of time to take knocks. You're gonna take knocks the entire time you continue to do it, basically.
Yeah, no, it was nice.
It's good that exists, though.
It was nice, and I think like I get the whole idea of like trial by fire, and like you just have to fucking suck for a long time or whatever. But like it definitely helped. For me, being a perfectionist, I think to go somewhere and be able to get some feedback. Because I think like when you're first starting, all your ideas are hacky and dumb. And like, you know, and so it's just like, if you get 0 every time, then you don't know if there's anything anywhere in any of your bits. Whereas like, if someone is willing to just give you a little chuckle here and there, if something seems like it has promise, then that gives you a sense, you know? But I feel like so many people just deal with like dead, completely like non-reactive audiences so often when they're first starting out. And it's like, how are you supposed to know which one has potential to work? Like, I mean, and maybe the idea is that none of them do, but you know, like at least for me, I know that was really, really helpful to like write a few tweets, be able to go say them to some people and get a few laughs. And like, that made me feel like I was actually, because when you're first starting out, you're just grasping for every little bit of confidence you can. And so like any little scrap that I was able to hang on to that made me feel like I could come back and do it the next week was always helpful. So
you were going repeatedly to that
mic. That was, I didn't know about any other ones. Like, so if someone told me about Bad Slava eventually, and like, then I started going to others.
Yeah. And because especially starting in New York, I don't think is any easy proposition. Like I think starting comedy in like New York or Los Angeles, I think is even more difficult than, because at places like this, unless you're on like the really great shows, it's always a bit of an uphill climb. Like even though I was starting at the sports bar, and the nights where people were there to actually see the show, you know, they're a receptive audience,
right?
And of course you have like, you know, we're going to do a show immediately following the Super Bowl. I had done that a couple times. My show last night was while the Super Bowl was on. So like that kind of stuff happens, but it can't just be a wall of anger.
Right. And resentment and like, who are you kind of vibes.
Yeah, no, when I first moved here, I moved here in 2010. And like when I first started going to the creek, I feel like it took me like 2.5 years to not feel uncomfortable at the creek all the time. And now it's like one of my favorite places to be.
Totally. When you're first starting
being
though,
there
like
so much, but I felt like it's like I was trying to like be in the club, and I had so many nights where all the comics are like hanging out on and I would like just stand adjacently to the side of them, hoping someone would talk to me before I eventually walk off alone.
No, it's like being the new kid at school. Like, like everybody's already in their little cliques, and you're feeling like very much the outsider when you first start out. So
yeah,
it's good. And I think for me, like, I definitely had the experience of like, I wanted to be friends with all of the more established comics, and really was like, no, you need to be friends with the people who are on your level. Like, you need to be friends with the other people who are 2 years in, not the people who are 5 years, pushing 5 years or whatever, because those people I may become friendly with people that are like more advanced than me now, but like when you're first like in your first year or whatever, and people don't know you from anyone and don't know if this is just a phase you're going through or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I don't blame anyone for being a little hesitant to like integrate someone wholeheartedly into their friend group. It's like, sometimes you kind of have to, and also there's just crazy people that get attracted to comedy because it's like a free microphone. So
yeah, there most certainly are.
So I think like it's understandable that there's a level of hesitance that some people have towards accepting just every random person that shows up on the scene. But.
Yeah, and especially in New York, because there's just so many.
Right.
Like, I had my friends in Baltimore because we would go pretty much every week. It was like the one place where I could get up that wasn't doing a bringer. And these 3 other guys made me laugh, and I made them laugh, and then that was
those were your dudes.
Those were my dudes.
Yeah.
And like New York especially, because I'm just glad that I have any friends at all. Like, I'll hit this October, I'll hit 10 years of doing stand up. But it always, because I always assume everyone's maybe been doing it around as long as I have. So I'm like, oh, Cathy's only been doing it for 3 years, but she seems like she's so much further along. And I mean it as a compliment.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Like the fact that like Sam Ruddy, who I've had on as well, is like maybe 3 or 4 years in and gets a Tuesday at Caroline's.
Like,
I think that's spectacular.
She's
I love
crazy
stuff.
amazing.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because it does feel like, like starting in a different place, like, has its benefits and its downsides, like from what I understand, because I didn't, I started here, so like I didn't have that experience, and like I know that like a lot of the people who started in smaller venues, like or smaller cities, like they got to have the experience of like opening for big names, and like they got to have the experience of like working lots of like local clubs and stuff, where like it takes a lot longer, I think, to like build up to that level when you're in New York, because there's so many other people on the level that wants that, struggling towards that, and so like you're in a much bigger pond. And so like I definitely like envy the people who got to sort of have that like smaller scene experience first, because I don't know, there's like an intimacy there that's probably nice.
There is
like more of a familiarity, because you see, I mean, it's like you were saying, there's so many people here that you sort of just know in passing, and like getting to know people really well is like not as easy to do, I'm sure.
Right. Well, part of the reason I like doing a podcast is it affords me that ability.
Absolutely.
Like, I had Maria Heineck on, who I think I've had maybe like 1 or 2 conversations with, and then and like her persona, she's kind of like, her whole stage persona is like, oh, I'm a bitch or whatever. But then like we sit down and it's like, oh, she's cool.
Yeah, no, totally. By and large, that's what my experience has been too, is like even the people who have kind of like a aggressive stage persona are usually pretty sweet as
super
pie.
Chill.
Yeah.
I just hope most people, but even if I just hope at the end of the day for me that a lot of people say, well, Carey, he's not as creepy as he looks.
Well, definitely, I would say you don't strike me as like a creepy looking dude, but I guess some people probably who are like heightist or whatever, they're just like, oh, he's tall, so he's scary.
Which I'd never had before I moved to New York.
I guess there's something about a tall guy in a crowd that's like imposing in some way.
No, I'm trying to be like sensitive to it, because if there's ever time where I'm walking on like the street or in the subway like late at night, and I realize I'm walking behind a woman, I'll try to like get around her, like look very non-threatening.
That's probably appreciated by whoever it is. Like, I always look at my phone. Like, if I'm afraid that like someone thinks I'm too close to them, like I'll just like pull my phone out and be looking at my phone just to try to be like, no, I'm not following. I'm looking at my phone. Bad people don't look at their phones.
Same. Because I usually have Pokemon Go up when I'm walking around. So I'm just like
the least menacing thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, that person can't possibly attack me. He's just trying to get that Snorlax.
Oh, that guy's just going after Kabutops. He's fine.
Yeah. Makes me so happy to hear you say that. So cool. So let me think about how I want to bring this in for landing. This has been a really nice chat. I appreciate
thank you for having me.
That you taking the time to do this. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately too, because I have been doing stand-up for 10 years, and I'm trying to think of a way to make a career out of it now.
Yeah.
I'm only now getting to the point where I feel like I could actively pursue like an agent or college shows or things of that nature. What are some goals you have, like, as far as like, do you want to pursue like being like the full-time like road comic or doing college shows, or do you want to write? What goals do you have?
I think like I don't know exactly like, but I think like definitely a goal I have this year is like I want to learn how to write a packet. Because I know a lot of people who submit packets all the time and are good about like giving a heads up if they hear about packet submission deadlines, and I'm like, what's a packet? Like,
I wish
so
I had
dumb.
those friends.
Yeah.
I don't know when anything is coming up for like submit to this.
I mean, it's just stuff that like randomly crops up and I'll put in my calendar and then it won't do stuff to get ready for it. And so like that's the next thing is like I want to have like writing projects that I am actively chipping away at throughout the year, and like even if it's just to write it, just not even for a deadline, just for the sake of learning the structure of how you do that, because I think a writing job would be really great at this phase in my comedy career, like obviously I'm still early in it, but like if I could at least just start getting a sense for like how you apply to those sorts of jobs and stuff, and like what they're expecting you to have is something I want to learn, because like we were saying, like the day job gets a little bit mind numbing after a while. And so like I've been trying to think like, okay, what's the kind of day job I could have that would still be great for comedy and that would be comedy adjacent or comedy related, and so like writing for some kind of show or publication of some kind would be awesome. Just because writing is at the end of the day the exercise you're doing as a stand-up, so like anything that makes me flex that muscle more would probably benefit my stand-up in some way. So I think like that's a goal for sure, is like try to write more, partially with the goal of getting hired, and then also partially just to like build a portfolio kind of, because then once you do start to like get into that agent writing career realm, it's good to like have people be like, oh, well, what's some other projects you're working on? And you have a thing that you can say that's not bullshit, So like, just like I have like a few like half-hatched like ideas for web series and a few like half-hatched screenplay ideas that I've had kicking around forever, that I just like this year want to really try to like buckle down and build like a body of work.
Yeah.
So that's my new thing, is like, and also obviously continue with the stage time and trying to do more of that. But I think like, and it's not like I want to quit doing stand up and write full time. Like that's not my goal, because I still really enjoy being on stage. Like the performance aspect of it is really an important part of it.
Yeah. It's still my favorite part of it all.
That still is the heroin hit that cannot be beat. So I feel like, that sort of that's the main thing that I would be building the rest of that stuff around, sort of just, but my main thing is just like, I want to have a routine that's more set in stone than mine is now. Cause right now I have a pretty good, just like work mic routine, but I don't have much creative stuff that I have like time squared away for outside of that. And so I want to try to get better about that.
Yeah. And this will be one other question, just because I need help with it as well. I know you're in a relationship. I am too. How do you, and maybe it's easier since he's a comic also, how do you balance having a personal life and trying to do everything you just described? Because I feel like I fuck up all the time.
It's nearly impossible. And I really honestly commend anyone who's doing it without dating a comic, because it does make it a lot easier because we do like go to mics together and stuff, and and there is more of just an understanding, I think, also inherent in like, you do the exact same thing I do, so you get it. If there's a shorthand that's available where you don't have to explain a situation as much about why something is annoying or whatever, because they completely understand. But like, we try to just like go see a movie every couple weekends. We usually will take at least one day off per week that when neither of us are booked on anything and neither of us like have any plans outside of each other, like, and we just either like spend a day on the couch and just like watch Netflix and hang out, or like have a day planned where we go to a museum or go out to the movies or have a date or something. Like, but like I think like it doesn't have to be like a big thing. A lot of times you just need time to decompress, and so if you can schedule that time to be also time that you're spending with that other person, then like you kind of get the best of both worlds in that scenario, because sometimes you do feel like you're coming close to burnout levels of like constant just all cylinders spinning all times. So like we try to force ourselves at least once a week to like just lock the doors, shutter the windows, and just
definitely
chill.
That's good. I need to try to be better at that.
It's hard to find the time sometimes, though. I get it.
Yeah, no, because she's really busy as well, and again, she like lives for whatever job she has,
right?
Which I can certainly relate to, but because her stuff's during the day and my stuff is at night, or it's like right after work. It's in like primo date hours. Yeah, totally. It's just a constant battle of and like I feel like I forget more stuff and a lot, but I ultimately try to come back to it's like it's all worth it. It's not going to be like this forever, presumably.
Right.
This all improves.
Yeah.
Someday.
No, totally. I think that's the dream, is that, you do get to a level where, I mean, you're probably not going to be able to avoid the fact that comedy happens at night, but hopefully you'll have enough flex time that that'll get easier.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to me, Cathy. What can we plug here?
I guess I can plug my show. I run a monthly comedy showcase at Halyard's Bar in Brooklyn. It's the first Wednesday of every month. Just check it out. It's called Park Dope. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Crappy Fumes. So you can check me out on there.
Awesome. Thanks for talking to me, Cathy.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, folks, that's the show. Thank you for listening. Have a good weekend. As always, you can check out my website, willcareyisfunny.com, for links to my upcoming stand-up shows. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and you can get tickets in the description. You'll find the link for tickets to my show with Tyler at the People's Improv Theater on February 28th. And if you want, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, give it a rating or a review. It would be greatly appreciated, because I'm trying to grow this thing as big as I can, and you're a part of it. So if you've been here, thank you. And I will see you next week between awesome and disaster. Take care, everyone.